Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Macquarie University webinar on the Bachelor of Philosophy, Master of Research program. My name is Nick Mansfield. I'm the Dean of High Degree Research, which means I have responsibility for the oversight of the academic structure and quality of our research training programs, which include the PhD and, most importantly, the Bachelor of Philosophy, Master of Research. So what we're going to do tonight is I'll go through a presentation which will tell you a little bit about the program, its background and its structure, and some of the key information you'll need to know. And then we'll be open for a Q&A, and that'll take us through to about 7 o'clock. So it is possible now for you to start answering questions if you have any in mind, and they'll just queue up ready for us to answer when the presentation is over. Okay, so let's head on and just talk through the slide presentation. And firstly, doesn't seem to be moving. Okay, try this way. Okay, let me say a little bit about the structure of the program. Firstly, it's offered in two identical formats. So you'll hear two names given to the program, and the first is the Bachelor of Philosophy, Master of Research, and that's the one that domestic students enroll in. And international students enroll purely, straightly in the two-year Master of Research program. The reason for that is the program is actually funded slightly differently for domestic students and international students. And each year of the program for domestic students is funded differently. So the first year of the program for domestic students is funded by the Australian government under the Commonwealth Supported Places program, what you might know as the HECS scheme. So if you've been doing an undergraduate degree at Macquarie, in an Australian university as a domestic candidate, you'll be familiar with the HECS payment scheme. And the first year of the program is consistent with that. The second year of the program, the MRes year, which is the research training year, focused year on the thesis, is funded under a completely different government scheme, and you move on to become a fully fledged postgraduate student in that phase. And so the hybrid nature of the program is reflected for domestic candidates in the name of the program. International students pay fees, so they're funded the same way across the entirety of the program, and so they don't need to enroll in that complicated structure. Okay, so that's a little bit about the naming. Let's talk a little bit about the actual structure of what you'd be doing when you're undertaking the BPhil MRes. So let's look at the BPhil year, the first year of the program. The Australian government ranks all of universities' qualifications on a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being the PhD. And the first year of the BPhil MRes program is equivalent to level 8 on the Australian qualifications framework. So it's the equivalent of what's known as honours at other universities. In that first year, you undertake 8 coursework units. It's a coursework-focused year. 2 of those units are standard across the university, though they are taught at faculty level. So you'll undertake a unit on research communications, which will induct you into the different ways in which research is communicated in conventional forms, like the academic journal article or the academic monograph, in oral presentations, such as conference presentations, and in newer forms of communication, multimedia, and the use of social media in communicating research these days, all of which is becoming increasingly important. You'll undertake another unit called Research Frontiers, and the aim of Research Frontiers in the first year of the program is to acquaint you with what are the cutting edge issues that people are researching in your particular academic discipline. The aim of that unit is to make you aware of where the really dynamic, innovative thinking and research is being undertaken in your area, which will allow you to make a really informed choice about what the most exciting frontiers of research might be that you want to investigate when you undertake your own personal research a little bit later. You'll then also, beside those, undertake 6 faculty or department-based coursework units. And they're going to be a mix of what we call advanced disciplinary coursework, where you'll be looking at a deeper level at subject matter to do with expanding your knowledge of your particular academic discipline. Or you'll be undertaking something that's more fully focused on research training, so some induction into research methodologies. That varies quite widely across the university, so different faculties, different departments have varying structures about how they put together those components of the program. Some faculties require candidates across the faculty to undertake particular programs, specific units. Others have much greater emphasis on elective choices across the board. Now, it is possible for you to put together a program of study in that year that is broader than one particular academic discipline. You can select units from across your faculty or even across the university. All you need to do is to be able to negotiate and discuss with an academic advisor in your Department of Enrolment to make sure that the program you put together is a coherent one, that you're qualified to undertake some of the units. These are already at a highly specialized level, so it's important that you're equipped to undertake these units if you're moving beyond your own discipline, and that they are the ones that are going to be appropriate for feeding into your research further down the track. Okay, now towards the end of the first year of the program, you'll be starting to think about exactly what area you want to research, and that's to prepare you for what you're going to be doing in the second year of the program. The second year of the program gets underway by the beginning of January, and its focus is on your particular research project. You'll undertake 5 activities in that year, but they're all basically designed to service the production of your thesis, which will be due for a normal full-time student at the beginning of the calendar year, which will be due in October. The thesis is 20,000 words, though there is, of course, considerable disciplinary variation depending on the actual practice and requirements of the department and discipline in which you're enrolled. The other activities you'll undertake, many of them are focused on providing you with structure and support in developing your own research project. So firstly, you'll do an activity called Research Frontiers 2. In the first year, your Research Frontiers unit was focused on your broad discipline to find out what were the new, innovative, controversial areas that people were researching now. The second year, Research Frontiers 2, the focus will be narrower. You'll be looking more at the very precise sub-disciplinary area in which your own research is situated. And again, that's to give you the background and the acquaintance so that you're really familiar with the range of issues and questions that are the most kind of dynamic and innovative, exciting ones in your particularly focused field of research interest. Now, the other activities you undertake in that year are all a way of structuring the work that you need to do in order to produce your thesis. So by the time you get underway in writing your thesis, you'll have a deep background in how to approach the building blocks that have put that thesis together. So you'll have some acquaintance with literature review. How do you deal with the academic literature in your particular discipline? Some disciplines you will work up a chapter which addresses the literature behind the background literature to the research topic that you're doing, that will assess, analyze, and critique that literature and explain why your project is necessary and particularly innovative. In other disciplines, in the humanities, for example, some people's theses are extended literature engagements with the literature in their area. So the purpose of that program is to acquaint you with exactly what you'll be learning and what you'll need to know to engage with the literature in your particular disciplinary area. You'll be doing similar things in the research methods area, helping you understand the research methodology that's going to be most appropriate for your topic, helping you to explain why that methodology is the one that is best suited to what you're trying to do in your own research. And there'll also be work done on research planning and project management to help you map out, stage, and then complete a large-scale project over a 9 or 10-month period. Okay, each of those activities is done slightly differently in different disciplines and different areas. Sometimes in some areas, some departments, there'll be a sequence of workshops behind those. In others, there might be a day, a session, an online module. There's a variety of different ways, whatever's deemed as the most appropriate and effective in individual disciplines. But as I said, the aim of all of those activities is to give you the background and the equipment and confidence and skills to undertake your own individual research project. Okay, so that says a little bit about the structure of the program. And in a sense, now you're a bit more acquainted with how the program is put together, I can say a little bit about the history of the MRes. In most Australian universities, and Australia is unique in this, people prepare for research training programs, so higher degree research degrees, specifically the PhD, which is the dominant research higher degree by research in Australia. Over 90% of higher degree by research candidates in Australia are undertaking the PhD. Traditionally, people have approached that in Australia by undertaking a fourth undergraduate year, the honours year. And Australia is unique in that case. Honours degrees are awarded elsewhere, but they mean something completely different. In Australia, it refers simply to a fourth undergraduate year, and that's often been seen as enough preparation for advancing on into a PhD. Macquarie, however, we recognise that across the country there's a problem in people undertaking PhDs without the kind of preparation and training that's standard around the world. Almost all jurisdictions around the world, whether they be across the Americas, in Europe, or in Asia, China, all require candidates to undertake a 2 or sometimes even a 3-year master's program before they enroll in a PhD. And the aim is that by the time you start your PhD, you're very well equipped. You have a strong knowledge of your academic discipline, you have research skills, and you have an awareness of exactly what it means to put a significant project of original research together. So Macquarie's idea was to move towards that global international standard and to build a lot of skills and training and preparation into our candidates who are aiming to go on into PhD, so that they're really well equipped and really confident when they start and have a really substantial background in research and really know what they're getting into when they start to undertake a PhD. And our feedback so far from the over 1,000 candidates who've undertaken the MRes at Macquarie is that they do feel, and supervisors endorse this, they are much better prepared than people who have simply completed the honours program when they go on to enrol in their PhDs. I'll say a little bit more about the relationship between the MRes and the PhD down the track. However, a significant number of people in some academic disciplines undertake this program without necessarily committing or thinking that they're going to go on to do a PhD. And some people change their minds in the middle of this program and decide that they'd rather go out into the workforce or into industry rather than going on to do a PhD. And the degree is really well suited to people in that situation as well. It gives them a really significant experience in identifying a problem, undertaking independent research, and communicating really significant findings, something that employers across a whole range of areas and industries see as very important. It gives you that sense of confidence, knowledge, skill, analytical ability, and independence and project management skills that are really appropriate in the contemporary workplace. Okay, so a little bit of the practical details. The admission requirements to the program. It does require a GPA of about 4.4 on a 7-point scale overall, and at least 5.25 at 300 level. So that's equivalent to about a credit average at the highest level of study. Credit average is usually taken to be a grade of 65 or more in the result. Now, there are some variations across disciplines. Those figures represent the university baseline standard. There is some flexibility. I mean, we do know that some people start out their program in one particular academic area that doesn't turn out to be so interesting to them, and their original academic record in that area mightn't be so strong. When they do find the academic discipline that's their true passion, they turn out to score much better. We do take that into account if you have an inconsistent performance, a little bit like that. And there are also some departments of disciplines in the university that have either other requirements or higher admission standards into the program. So it is important for you to get as much information as you can about the particular department or discipline in which you intend to work, and all that information is on faculty and department websites, so you should find it relatively easy to find. But as I say, Those figures of 4.38 represent the minimum basic standards set by the university for admission into the BPhil MRes. It is also possible for people to go into the second year of the program. So if you've already undertaken honours, either years ago at Macquarie or at another university in Australia, or if you've undertaken an earlier master's program, then it is possible for you to be given full credit for the first year of the program and to be admitted directly into the second year of the program. And we do have a significant number of people who do take that option. So it is worth discussing with an academic advisor in the department or in our central offices about your own academic record and what kind of credit you'd be given. It isn't an automatic thing that if you've got honours or a master's degree that you'd be given full year credit. Particular disciplines might require you, if they feel that your training and skills are lacking in one or other particular areas, they might require you to undertake a small number, a part of the first year program before you go on into the second year of the program. But we have had hundreds of people who've gone directly into the second year of the program, in other words, directly into the research phase of the program in preparation for going on. Okay. A little bit about the exchange possibilities in the MRes. Macquarie is actually, of all Australian universities, the biggest participant in what we call co-tutel or joint PhD programs. And a co-tutel or joint PhD, they're two slightly different variations with largely administrative differences and legal differences. That's when you undertake your PhD across two different countries. So you're enrolled simultaneously at two universities before you, while you're undertaking your PhD, and you're finally awarded one degree, but from two universities. And that's a really rich experience for people undertaking their PhDs. They get to live in two different countries. They get to experience working with researchers in different areas. They get access to equipment and research materials, archives, research sites, archaeological digs, really specialised pieces of scientific equipment that aren't available in Australia or in their own country. And they get the opportunity to double the research network that they form while they're undertaking their PhD, which will really stand them in good stead as they go on into their later careers. In order to prepare our PhD candidates for that, there are exchange opportunities available in both of the first and the second year of the BPhil MRes program. So it is possible for you to undertake some coursework with one of our partners overseas, and as it says, we have over 100 partners in over 30 countries, and so it is possible for you to undertake either some coursework component of the program or else undertake some of your research at one of our partner institutions, contributing to the completion of your BPhil MRes program. And our aim, of course, is that that's a really rich experience and really aids in your development as a student and as a researcher. It's a great personal experience, but we also hope that people who are intending to go on into the PhD will develop while they're on exchange the relationships that will allow them to set up a co-tutel or joint PhD further down the track, because we believe that that's such a rich possible experience for our research candidates. Okay, the practicalities of fees. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the program is funded differently for domestic students and for international students, like all educational programs at Australian universities. So the first little bit will be about the situation for domestic candidates. Domestic students in the first year of the program, the BPhil part of the program, are recognised by the Australian government as undergraduate students, advanced undergraduate students, and therefore their program is on the HECS scheme. So they will be accruing a HECS liability just as they would have when they were undertaking their undergraduate coursework in Australia. Those who are admitted to the program and studying full-time, domestic candidates are also awarded an $8,000 stipend, and that they receive that in two tranches of $4,000 each after the HECS census dates, which are in March and August each year. So in the first year, if you're admitted and studying as a domestic candidate and studying full-time in the program after the HECS census date at the end of March, you'll receive a payment of $4,000. And if your performance is satisfactory in that first session and you go on to the second session, as a full-time candidate, you would be awarded another $4,000 towards the year. Now, towards census date in August. Now, we're aware that that's not a huge sum of money, but our aim is just to provide you with a little bit of relief in your living costs, so that you don't have to spend a huge amount of time just to support yourself. We know that that's not necessarily going to support you, but it is some contribution that the university can make towards your living expenses while you're undertaking your degree, and hopefully will at least reduce some of the other commitments that you might have in your study. Now, in the second year of the program, as I mentioned earlier, you move on into becoming a master's student. You're no longer an undergraduate student, so you become a postgraduate research student. And as a domestic candidate, you are funded under the Australian government's research training program. And so you you aren't required to pay fees, and you aren't required to, you won't be accruing HECS liability at that stage either. And also for our high-performing students, we have quite a large bucket of scholarships that are available for the best students, and they're equivalent to the PhD rate, the Australian Government Postgraduate Research rate, which is currently about $27,000 tax-free and is an index stipend. So we have a significant number of scholarships awarded to high-performing students transitioning from the first year into the second year of the program. So it is possible for not only for you not to be paying any fees, but also to receive a living allowance that should allow you to be able to not have to work and be able to concentrate on your research. Now, for international students, the situation is consistent with what you'd be familiar with when you're an undergrad, and that is you'll be paying tuition fees based on the university's set fee structure. It is possible for international candidates to be given what's called a bundled offer to go into the second year of the MRes and then on into the PhD, and they can have an up to a 4-year combined scholarship then. In order to access those, they will need to apply through the International Research Training Program round that the university offers, and I'll give you the closing date for applications for that at the end of the presentation in a couple of minutes. And Macquarie does partner with a large number of international funding agencies, the China Scholarship Council, and different funding agencies across the Americas, Europe, and Asia that will provide scholarships that can be used in support of this program. Details vary between each of those programs, but the university does have information about those programs and how to apply to them. And those partner governments are familiar with the MRes, and most have signed up to allowing funds to be used for the second year of the MRes and on into the PhD. Okay, so a little bit about the MRes PhD relationship here at Macquarie. After Macquarie does require that candidates applying for entry into the PhD at Macquarie do have a Masters of Research or equivalent, so a 2-year master's program with a substantial research component. Most master's programs in Australia are coursework programs. They often have a small research project, but one that's not of sufficient size and scale to equip people to go on into the PhD, in our opinion. So we do require people to have the MRes or its equivalent before going on into the PhD. If you get a score of over 75 in your second year of your PhD, your thesis, which makes up 90% of the grade that you get in the second year, is given a numerical score by your examiners. If you get 75 or more, you will have automatic entry into the PhD program at Macquarie if there is a supervisor available to undertake your program of research. And from 2018, the university gives a large number of scholarships to top performing MRes students to go on into the PhD program. So for high performing candidates, they're also awarded that $27,000 tax-free scholarship to go on into the PhD program as well. Just before I go on to talk about the application details, just one word about the academic structure of the relationship between the MRes second year and PhD. What we hope is that candidates undertaking the MRes are designing a project that is like the pilot or the first stage of the project that they'll go on to do in their PhD. And our aim is to provide people with a much better structure and support and scaffolding so that they're much better prepared before they go on into a PhD. That's not just in general research training terms, but by the time they enroll in the PhD, they will have already undertaken the background reading. They would have identified the methodology, they would know what their research question is, and be well advanced in the actual academic content of the project they go on to do in their PhD. Across Australia, across the world, there's been a problem of people dropping out early in PhDs or not completing them because they took too long to really orient themselves into a research training program. So what we hope to do at Macquarie is that in that second year of the MRes, you really do a small version of the project that will go on to become your PhD project as well. So you'll be really well prepared and done a lot of the background work before you actually formally enroll in the PhD. Our aim, in fact, is that by the time you've finished the MRes, you're more or less equivalent to someone at the end of the first year of the PhD at another university, so that you're well advanced in your project by the time you enroll in the PhD and much more prepared and confident. Okay, just finally, a little bit about the application details. The date for those IRTP applications for people who want to enroll, international students who want to enroll in the second, they want a scholarship for the second year of the MRes and potentially a bundled offer that will continue on into PhD. Applications need to be in by the end of July. If you only want to apply for enrolment for the following calendar year, applications are due at the end of August. And for domestic candidates, applications are due at the end of October. The complication there and the variation there depends on time it takes for international candidates to secure their visas. So we need to have those processed a lot earlier to make sure they're ready to start the program at the beginning of the calendar year in the following year. Okay, so there's the link as well to the all the information you need to know about how to begin your application process. Okay, well, thank you. I hope that's given you some really solid information about the BPhil MRes program, its background, what it's trying to achieve, and how it's put together. Now what we'll do is move on to talk a little bit about the, is to answer questions. Before I do that though, I will just alert you to the fact that we would like you to undertake a poll when you complete the webinar, so we can know how effective it's been for you. That's really helpful for us in planning future sessions. And now what we'll do is go on to the Q&A. So I've got a series of questions, and there's also, I have a couple of colleagues who are offline at the moment who can also answer some questions by text. So if I don't answer your question, it could be queuing up to be answered by text offline. So I might leave that first question because I'm not absolutely sure what the answer to that one is. But the next question is, do I have to have a clear understanding of what research frontier in anthropology that I will be wanting to study prior to applying for the MRes? No, you don't need to have a particular focus. You don't have to have a topic identified before you actually enroll in the first year of the program. One of the aims of the first year of the program is to help your thinking to evolve, and so you can decide about exactly what's the thing that's going to be both of most interest to you and most engage with really exciting things that are going on in your discipline. So as you work, through that year, you'll be starting to think in the background about what research you want to do. You'll be talking to some of your teachers, other academics in the department, and that will help you identify towards the end of the first year exactly what research you'd like to do. Okay. Roughly how many contact hours per week is required for full-time study and part-time study? Is part-time study covered fully or partially by HEX. I think I can answer most of that information. That's a question from Sherry. The number of contact hours will vary as it goes from discipline to discipline, but you'll be doing 16 credit points in each semester of the first year program, and each credit point requires 3 hours of work, including both classwork and work offline. So you're expected to do somewhere between 40 and 50 hours work a week, but the actual way that'll be offered varies hugely from unit to unit and department to department. So most units would require 2 to 3 hours of face-to-face study per week, but it does vary, and some modules will be available externally or online, so there's some flexibility around that. And it is possible to study the program part-time. Normally a part-time candidate would do 2 units, so it would be expected to be able to undertake about 20 or 25 hours of study a week, but it is possible to do 1, and yes, it is possible for that part-time study to be funded under the HEX program. Okay, our next question is about IELTS score. The question is there any option of an IELTS score exemption for enrolment? Let me answer that one. There is no real flexibility around the IELTS. Macquarie's IELTS requirements are that you have an overall IELTS score of 6.5 with 6 as the minimum in each band. That's consistent across our research training programs as it is across our other coursework programs as well. We do set that score because we are sincere that we believe that that is the requirement that you will need in order to undertake your research. We don't see much possibility of any exemptions from IELTS requirements, as we think you would really start to struggle if your language skills weren't up to what's required firstly in dealing with the classroom, but also in producing the written work from which you'll be assessed. And second part of that question is, want to know the scholarship options for the government official engaged in food safety analysis. We don't have any particular scholarships offered by the university based towards particular professions or in any particular research areas, not at the MRes level. It is possible that there are some particular research projects at the PhD level with scholarships attached to them, but our scholarship options are really the same across the board and across all disciplines and to all applicants. So the only distinction we make is between international and domestic candidates, and that's largely because of the structure of government and university funding rules. So what you probably need to do is to find out more about what I've said in about the scholarships in general terms, but also any particular scholarships that might be available from your home government that could help contribute to your supporting you while you're here. Okay, next question is from Edward, and that's about the GPA. How relevant is the GPA to get into the program? And Edward's a mature age student who's interested in research and has done 3 masters, including an MBA. Now, the GPA, just read a little bit more about what Edward says. I completed all my qualifications by part-time or by correspondence, and the GPA may be slightly less than is required. And you also have quite a significant amount of research experience. Now, that's really up to the department. The GPA is used primarily as a benchmark to decide how equipped you are to undertake the demands of the program. And so if you're able to demonstrate that you have some other forms of qualification, or there have been other mitigating factors that are affecting the way your performance you've performed in other aspects of the program, then that would be taken into consideration. All those things are looked at on a case-by-case basis. So the GPA is a really suitable benchmark, but as I say, the real question that academics will be asking is, are you equipped to undertake the program? And that we are open to different ways in which you might prove that. Okay. Next question is from Yinging. Are there any scholarships for international students who completed undergrad at Macquarie? The scholarships that are available are more or less the ones that I just outlined earlier, and we don't distinguish between international students who've come through Macquarie and those who have come from elsewhere. But all the information that I outlined earlier in the presentation is available through the scholarships site on the research webpage, research training webpage. So have a look at that, and that will give you information not only about the ones that are offered through Macquarie, but also the governments that we partner with, the governments that we partner with for scholarship purposes. Okay. Next question is from Christelle. Try and move through these fairly quickly. Is there a possible way to have access to a neuroscience PhD in your university, and what thesis are you working on? That's a pretty specialized question, and I'm going to answer it because it does have significance for other people as well. And that is, if you're really interested in finding out what's possible, what's a really appropriate research area at Macquarie, then you should have a look at department websites. Neuroscience is something that's big at Macquarie, both in the cognitive science area, but also in the neuroscience in our medical faculty as well. Those are big focuses of research for us. So have a look at the researchers and their kind of areas that they're working on. And of course, the thesis that you'd be undertaking while you were doing that program is something that you would negotiate and discuss with them as you're going through the program, as you're preparing to go on into the PhD. Question from Gay about external study. Is part-time and external study available? Part-time study is available across all parts of the university, but not every department is offering their courses externally. It is possible to undertake the program externally, and a significant number of units are offered, but it would be worth having a look at the particular department that you're in, or that you're interested in, and you'll be able to find there really good information about what options you have for external study as well. So scrolling down these questions, some of them have, and I've just kind of covered, and I might leave some of my colleagues offline to answer some of those. I've answered this question, oops, great, showing my usual textual skills. I've lost that question. I want to answer this one from Mohammed. After completing MRes Year 2 with a bundled offer, is it possible to change a field in the PhD? It is possible. I might actually extend that to slightly earlier in the program. It is possible for you to enroll in the BPhil MRes program in a field that's different to the one that you have done in your earlier training. Again, the issue that's going to be most important to PhD, to academic advisors is, are you actually equipped to sit in the classroom with people who've done undergraduate study in that particular discipline? But it is theoretically possible. The second part of the question, gets to the heart of what Mohammed's really asking, is is it possible to change the field of the PhD once you've finished the MRes? That's getting a lot trickier because the really fundamental purpose of the program is to prepare you for studying the PhD. It would be a really risky thing to launch off into another area, but it would be possible if you're broadening your research into an interdisciplinary area for which you had a background. And it is also possible for you to change your topic. So as I mentioned earlier, ideally what we like to see is that a candidate who undertakes a certain topic in their MRes year 2 is planning to go on and do that, continue that topic or in that area as they go on into their PhD. But of course we understand that people might lose interest in that particular area. They might undertake a project in the MRes that exhausts their interest in that particular area. So we would understand if somebody wanted to research a different topic as they go on into the PhD. Again, it's a question of negotiating to make sure you're in a position to undertake that program happily and satisfactorily. Okay, let me move down. Just answer this question from Madden. If you're hoping to apply to competitive international PhD programs eventually, and I think you're looking at some North American universities, Georgetown, University of Chicago, and Ivy League schools, how will this program prepare you in the application process, putting you in good stead for acceptance? And your interest is in national security. It's really difficult to make an assessment on behalf of other universities around the world. They have varying requirements for admission, and basically, if you were looking to undertake a PhD, the PhD in North America has a different structure to other jurisdictions around the world. The PhD in North America tends to be a 5-year program with 2 years of coursework and then a 3-year research program. There are a lot of variations, of course. You'd really need to address that question to the particular universities that you're interested in for them to make an assessment. Certainly, we believe that the MRes is a much more significant preparation for that kind of program than an honours year would be in Australia. But again, you'd really need to talk to individual universities about that. In other jurisdictions, the overwhelming majority of other countries around the world don't undertake a PhD on that scale. The PhD is it's in China, for example, 1 or 2 years coursework, then a 3-year research project. In Europe, it tends to be largely just a research project, as it is in Australia, and some jurisdictions there is some coursework. Then the MRes is really designed to prepare you to go directly on into a PhD in those countries. So it's much more standardized than it is. It's harder to see exactly how it fits into the North American model. The next question is from Jan Harvey. I have a doctoral degree from India where I've already completed 2 years of coursework and my thesis. Would I be better off applying for the PhD program? It is always worth applying if you believe that you have the qualifications to go on into the PhD already. If you have a significant research degree in your background, then you can apply, and the university will make an assessment and come back with what it thinks is the most appropriate offer for your background. So it would be possible for you to apply for a PhD. The office will assess that application and might come back and ask you to undertake to go to spend some time in the PhD, in the Masters of Research instead. Joanne's asking, can you major in something different in a Master of Research to what you majored in your bachelor degree? Yes, you can. But as I said, the emphasis is going to be on whether you're actually qualified to go on into the MRes. So you'll be sitting in a classroom. If you wanted to shift into another discipline, you will be in a classroom and being assessed against candidates who have undertaken their undergraduate degrees in that particular area. So you have to think about how well equipped you're going to be for that. But we do know that some people do have those skills. They might have other training or other work background that would allow them equip them for that kind of study, and we would accept that. Again, that would be assessed on a PhD, on a case-by-case basis. Okay, Majid asks, upon successful completion, would the candidate have the option to pursue PhD in a different university? Of course, that's up to you. And again, it's up to that other university, as long as you meet their entry requirements. And as I say, universities are independent organizations, so entry requirements vary a lot from university to university, but it would be up to them. But certainly we think that you would be well equipped to go on to do a PhD elsewhere. You're not required to stay at Macquarie. And you do have that if you decide it's more appropriate for you to study elsewhere. Okay, I'm just going to scroll down some of these questions because we've got 15 minutes left and there are quite a few backed up, and leave some of those for my colleagues to answer and just see what questions there are. What questions there are for that might raise issues that I haven't really discussed already, and that are going to be of more general interest to a wide sector of the audience. So Majid asks, for the full-time course, what time are the classes held? Can I manage the classes with a full-time 9-to-5 job? Again, that's something that you would need to have a look at in relation to your particular area. So in some disciplines, we're aware that a lot of people are in employment, and so they do have flexibility around the time that the courses are offered. So what I recommend is that you either have a look on the website or you contact someone in the department and ask them that question. In other areas, of course, there would be a preponderance of units in either the day or in the late afternoon, early evening, for which a lot of people have some flexibility. Okay, just scrolling down again to see what kind of... okay, so I've got a message from an anonymous question, and I think this is quite an interesting question. What would you consider the biggest selling point of completing this degree compared to an already specific master's at another university? And I can answer that by just focusing on some of the reason why Macquarie did the PhD, did the MRes route as its preparation for PhD study. And for a long time, it's been recognised, not only in Australia, but across the world, that really the largest problem for people undertaking PhDs is that they're not really fully aware of what research is before they enrol in the PhD, and they're not really fully equipped to do it. And the consequence for that is PhD programs around the world do have long completion times and high dropout rates, and certainly Australia is not the worst in that regard. And if you undertake a PhD for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes longer, and then don't complete it, that's not really a good thing for you, and it's not good for the university either. And certainly if you start a program and it turns out to be an unhappy experience for you, it can be quite traumatic for you to be discontinued or terminated. And so what Macquarie thought was the real way of dealing with this problem is to give people a rich experience of what research is really like, and also give them a much better preparation and training before they go on into the PhD, so that they know exactly what they're getting into. The kind of research project that you might have undertaken in another master's at another university is not on the same scale and doesn't give you that really strong understanding of what a major research project like a PhD is like. And look, we do have a number of people who undertake the Masters of Research here, and they do decide that research is not the thing for them. And they complete the Masters of Research, they have a happy experience of that, and then they go on to work in another area. So one of the aims of the program is to equip you much better, and for you to have get a good understanding of what a research project is really like before you go on into a PhD. So the advantage is that you'll be much better prepared to go on into a PhD if you undertake the MRes at Macquarie than if you've been doing a master's by coursework or a disciplinary-based master's elsewhere. Okay. just let me look down. Got another question. Would an unrelated honours degree completed at Macquarie contribute to the more general faculty level units for the MRes, provided it is in the same faculty? Now that's a good question, and again, that's an assessment that needs to be done by an academic in the faculty or department, looking closely at exactly what you've done. There isn't a general rule about that, and we do assess things on a case-by-case basis. And again, the issue is going to be, are you equipped to go on to undertake the Masters of Research program? And do you have the background knowledge and skills to be able to deal with that program? Undertaking a research project is a hugely demanding thing, and we want to make sure that people who go on to do that are in a really strong position and confident and capable of doing it. So there isn't a general rule precluding that, but there is the possibility of having an academic advisor look at your program in some detail and making that decision. Okay, just scrolling down again just to try and find some questions that might touch on some issues that we haven't had an opportunity to talk about yet. Again, a lot of questions are fairly specific to individuals. Someone's just asked a question about the exchange program, referring to the connection with other universities through the exchange program, the dual university qualification when completing the MRes through exchange. Sorry, is the dual university qualification, do you get a dual university qualification when completing the MRes, or is that option only available for the PhD? You don't actually, the exchange in the MRes program is the same as the kind of exchange that people undertake at undergraduate coursework. So they do enroll and study at another university, but their qualifications are judged as fulfilling the requirements of their program here. So the actual award that they walk away with would be just the Macquarie degree. The situation with the PhD is quite different because you're undertaking the entirety of your degree at the two universities. So you will, and both universities are awarding you a degree. So in the PhD, you really just get one result for the entirety of the qualification. And since it's coming from both universities, you get an award from both universities. Okay. So just some, okay, some of these questions I've already answered. So questions about, just in general, some questions, I'll just repeat the answer to the question about external study. It is possible to undertake, because quite a lot of people are interested in that, it is possible to undertake the program part-time and as a domestic candidate, and it is possible to undertake some units externally. So you'd need to check whether your program is offering units externally, and because not all units have enough students who are interested in studying externally to justify them mounting the program entirely in that way. So you'd need, but others do. So it is worth just checking with your particular discipline what is available. There is a question just following on about part-time study, a question about how that affects stipend. Stipend for the BPhil in the first year is only available for domestic candidates and only available for candidates studying full-time. So, and full-time is defined as someone undertaking 75% of the full program. So if there are 4 units in each semester of the first year program as the standard full-time load, you need to be undertaking 3 in order to qualify as a full-time student and to get access to that stipend. The stipend in the second year, it is theoretically possible to have a part-time stipend in the second year at that higher research training program rate, but it is considered exceptional and unusual, and it's really only awarded to people in exceptional circumstances, and it's not a standard thing to undertake part-time, to have a scholarship awarded for part-time study. And that's simply because we believe that research training programs are really demanding, and they should be the primary focus of the candidates, so the funds are really reserved for candidates studying full-time. But it is possible in some circumstances. It's possible in some circumstances to get access to part-time scholarships. Another question, and this is an issue we haven't discussed, is there any age restriction for enrolment in the MRes? And absolutely not. There is no age restriction. The only thing is you have to have met the academic qualifications required for admission. But certainly we don't have any quotas or any make any judgment. And we do have people not only undertaking the MRes, but people undertaking the PhD as well, often at quite advanced ages. I think we've certainly had candidates undertaking PhDs in their 80s, and I do know, I'm not sure if it's happened in Macquarie, but I do know of someone undertaking a PhD in their 90s at another Australian university. So don't think that we make any discrimination against people based on age when making admissions to the MRes. Okay, Huilo asks, are permanent residents treated as domestic students? Yes, they are. The definition of a domestic student is that they are a permanent resident. So, and if you're applying as a permanent resident, your application is due, sorry, if you're applying as a domestic candidate, your application is due at the end of October for the following year. Okay, now we are beginning to run out of time, so I might only have time for answering one more question. And that's from Renee, and this is a different question to the one that we've asked before. If your questions have not been answered, don't fear, they will be answered online, by email over the next day or so. So all questions will receive some response by email. The ones we did have a huge flood of questions, and many of them remain unanswered as we get to the end of time. Okay, so the last question that I'll have time to answer, I think, is, are there restrictions, from Renee, are there restrictions on numbers or placements in faculties for the BPhil MRes? And the answer to that is no, there are no set restrictions on numbers admitted into the program. The more the merrier is Macquarie's attitude, and we really aim to make this program as appealing and to attract as many candidates into it as possible, not for our particular purposes, but because we believe it's a great program and offers so many benefits for people. So certainly we're making the program as open as possible for as many people as possible. There might be some restrictions in individual classes, but our aim would be to make to open other classes and make more and more available to you as we to make the experience possible for as many students as we can. And I think I do have time for just one more. If you complete an MRes and then decide not to complete a PhD, would the MRes provide enough practical skills to make you as employable compared with others who've completed a more coursework-focused master's degree? That's a really good question, and that will vary from discipline to discipline. I mean, some disciplines, of course, require very specific skills, but we do believe the kinds of skills in analysis, communication, problem solving, project management, and communication that you'll learn through this degree are the ones that employers are crying out for across the board. And so we do believe that in general terms, you will be picking up the kinds of skills that will make you very employable. Okay, I think that's all we've got time for. It's 6:59 and we're due to finish at 7. So thank you to everyone who's come along tonight, and thanks to my colleagues offline who have been answering questions, and to all the support people, Jenny and Linda, who've been made this all possible for us tonight. Don't forget, the poll is still available, so we would really welcome your feedback to find out how successful and helpful the session tonight has been, so we can plan to make it even better and brighter as we go into the future. So thank you, everyone, and good night.